books for business and personal development. Uh, Do you read books? Some people think that, oh, nobody reads books. Hi, I'm Christine Rothdeutsch.
And I'm Barbara Menino.
And today on Soapbox Wisdom, we're talking books. And that can be in different formats. I like the hardcover, paper book, although I'm getting into audiobooks. How about you, Barbara? What's your favorite way to read a book? And okay, so I'm sorry. I'm assuming you like to read books because you're a writer.
You got it. I love to read books. And my absolute favorite way of reading books is print, hardcover books. I definitely buy paperbacks, but I love my print books. I love to hold them, touch them, smell them. There's something about a print book.
Yeah, me too. Until, oh gosh, just in the last couple months, I discovered audiobooks. And I know a lot of people around me have been talking about audiobooks. I'm like, how can you listen to a book? I don't know. But I need the paper. I need to see the words. And then I started listening to audiobooks. Well, because it was included in my Spotify subscription. So I'm like, all right, let's give this a try. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty neat. I can ride my bicycle or take a walk and listen to a book. I don't have to be looking at the words. But where I really found the big benefit for myself was in listening to a book that I've already read. So I read the paper one time and then I'm coming back to listen and I'm like, wow, rereading, whether it's reading or listening, I'm finding a huge benefit for myself. Have you ever tried audio?
So that's a good tip. And I really haven't tried audio. My very good friend Jeannie loves audiobooks, and her job requires her to drive around in her car from appointment to appointment. And she found that time was more productive and enjoyable if she listened to an audiobook. So many people, yourself, Jeannie, love them. My son listens to them. I think I need to start. And I thought your comment about listening to a book you already read was a step up. It kind of gave what you read a second dimension. It lets you assimilate the information more, kind of turn it around, digest it, react to it. I like that idea immensely.
Well, and that's we don't we're not able to take in all of the information on the first round. I've read a few books that in the very beginning, they're like instructing you how to read this book. And they're saying, read it through once totally, okay? And then come back. And these are again, more business related books. One of them has to do with systems, so it was suggested just read the whole book once and then come back and start to reread it and assimilate it. So that's even saying it's like you can't digest all the information at one time, which leads me to when people say, I have a goal of reading 100 books this year. A friend of mine said that. My friend Deb, she was going to do that with her daughter. And I'm like, but how much information can you take in and remember and use and whatnot? Because I'm like, no, wait a minute, 100 books a year, 52 weeks a year, that's 2 books a week.
It's a
Why
lot
would
of
you wanna
reading.
do that? I'd rather reread a book. And granted, everything on my shelf here, I have not read the first time, but I am still going back and rereading a couple that I know, there's information there that I need to take to get in. Um, so
And that's a funny thing about the list, and I think 100 books is overly ambitious, and I wonder how much you can really absorb and sink in. But again, my friend Jeannie made a New Year's resolution a few years ago that she was going to read 26 books. And she basically did that. She read 22 of them by December 31st.
Mhm.
and then extended the resolution or her commitment and read the next 4 by the end of January that year, feeling she had really gone full circle. She was very proud of that accomplishment, and it was a nice number that worked for her
Mhm.
because so frequently in our conversations, when we were talking about life or business, she would reference a book and an author and share something that she had learned and something that had resonated with her. So the next year, I tried keeping track of the books that I read and made a list as I went along. And I got up to 21, and I felt really good about that. And I tremendously enjoyed the books. And knowing that I was keeping a list kind of spurred me on, that idea of competing with yourself to accomplish a goal.
Yeah. And you know what really brought this topic up for me was just the last couple of weeks I started rereading Michael Gerber's E-Myth. And I read it many years ago. I can't remember how long ago I read it. And as I'm reading it now, I'm like, "Oh, did I miss that? How did I miss that? Oh my, all this information." And this is the book. You can see I have lots of Post-it notes here. And I'm highlighting stuff. That's the other reason to have paper is so that you can make notes in it and highlight the good stuff. Although when you have a really good book, everything's good. That's I'm struggling like, well, I can't highlight everything. But it's just goes to show, that just because you read a book once doesn't mean you got it all. And this is another piece to when you're a business owner, how do you learn strategies, tactics, what you need to do other than Googling or a business coach or, marketing coach, sales, whatever. This is just another tool. Read because there are a lot of good things out there. I love the books that actually give you a step by step process to work through. Give me a process, I'm good. I just have to stick with that process till the very end. But I have several books here that are like that, and I love them because it's not just reading something and then like, all right, now what do I do with it? No, it's kind of like going to a class. All right, class, now do your homework, and at the end, you have the end result. So that's one of my favorite types of books.
I like business books that provide a lot of knowledge, but also have inspirational components to them.
Mhm.
I love to read books, for example, on story and writing, and find that some notable author, some notable business guru has an idea that I've come up with on my own, and it makes me feel brilliant, excited, inspired, um, part of a larger community. That is the wonderful thing about reading a book, by the way, as opposed to just relying on Google, which I think we do these days because everybody's always so pressed for time. But when you read a book, you really get to luxuriate business, nonfiction, or even fiction. You get to luxuriate and be one with the book and kind of be one with the author and agree with the author or disagree, reacting to something that an author has said. Disagreeing is as important as totally agreeing because that's how you learn. It's a new idea. It broadens your perspective. And if you saw me looking down when you showed those highlights in your book, I was looking for my highlighter because a highlighter is one of the important things you should have in hand when you are reading a print book, along with a notebook or a journal, so you can really note down again things that really touch you, resonate, teach you something. And I often put the page number so that I'm sure in your idea of rereading to go back, even if it's a particular chapter, or a particular page or a particular segment in a chapter.
Mhm.
So all these are the tools, and that goes for pleasurable books as much as it does for business books, I think.
Yes, and when I first thought about talking about books, I did do a little research on my own, and I was curious about the benefits of reading books, and doing things like that. The cognitive benefit. Yes, I think I said that right, cognitive. It's huge, and it goes whether you read a book in print or listen to an audio book. Science has found that they're very similar in, improving, what you're learning, your cognitive ability. I found that very interesting that, both reading and listening. So if I read a book and then I listen to it, wow, I'm really helping myself.
Double,
It's like,
double
and I'm
whammy.
thinking that now at this part, I'm just hypothesizing here of the correlation of, like you said about having a notebook and writing notes down. I find that more beneficial than to sit and type on my keyboard, and take notes that way, and I think that writing has been found to help you retain more information than typing on a keyboard.
It
Um
has, and I know it personally makes a difference with me as well. If I read something along the lines of cognitive expansion and what reading books do, and this particular author says a book really requires people to concentrate, and this creates higher levels of brain activity and makes your brain more expansive to knowledge, which is a pretty neat thing, especially if you're a proponent, as I know both of us are, and many people today are, of lifelong learning. So imagine all those books and a good long life, what it'll do for your head or your brain.
Yeah, yeah. Now, okay, okay, so I'm thinking our listeners might be saying, "But I don't have the time to read books." Well, or listen to a book. My suggestion, do it in the morning. Do it first thing in the morning. Well, not first thing in the morning, but as part of your morning routine. I've even found where if it's a book that has a lot of information to take in, I might only read a couple pages because that's all I can consume at that time, because I don't wanna just read it for the sake of, "Okay, I read it." I wanna be able to digest what that was, so I might not get through a whole chapter. It might only be a couple of pages. It couldn't I have to stop at a point that I can pick up easily, but yeah, I find the mornings, or, maybe it's something you do before bedtime. I'm not a I don't find that I can do that because by the end of the day, I don't think my brain is going to retain that. Maybe a fiction book is what you read at nighttime, and it's the business and professional development stuff in the morning. I don't know. But yeah, find the time in your day and 10, 15 minutes even. But it really, years ago, I had someone ask me in the very early days of my business if I read this author or that, I forget who he was asking. It was had to do with business development and everything. And that was before I really had started to read books. And it was this person's opinion that, like, well, if you're not reading these books, like, who are you? And it I felt a little odd in that conversation. I think it was a little unfair at the time because I did have knowledge, maybe not from a book. But I'm certainly glad though that I am taking the time to read books now in these last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. I've really started to, increase it, and I really do see a benefit. And I wish I had started to really pick them up sooner. But yes, I
So
am
I
taking
agree
it
with,
now.
I'm sorry.
That's
I didn't
okay.
mean to interrupt you. I agree with you that morning is such a wonderful time to read. First of all, I love to wake up before anybody else in the house is awake,
Mhm.
and the quiet is just, it's such a wonderful cocoon. And it does, to your point, Christine, enable you to take in the information. And I agree, less can be more. Whatever it takes to kind of get your wheels churning. I think in addition to what you pull from the book, there's a certain energy that's created and makes you be more energetic when you sit down to actually do your work. It just gets the juices flowing. And another cool thing to do, and I participated in this once, was having a actual business book group where one person is the facilitator, suggests a book that they will read for the next session. Everyone reads it, and then there's a discussion. And it's amazing, say you have 5 to 7, maybe even 10 people in the group, how each of you reading the same thing can still broaden perspectives because you bring your own knowledge base, your own expertise, the work that you do to what you read. And so it can broaden and expand the interpretation, which is quite lovely.
Yes, I've been in a book group in the past myself, and I found a benefit to hear other people's perspectives, on a certain chapter of, wow, that hit home for them. Oh, I didn't think of it that way. Um, so yeah, being in a book group and discussing, that's another level of this whole thing of benefiting from books. So yeah, I know we all live in this hurry up lifestyle, but I am grateful to have been introduced to both business and personal development books that got me to thinking differently and finding pieces that have been missing for me over the years. And it's just, yeah, I highly recommend reading books. There.
One other thing about when you read, say, for example, as we both said, the morning, and really intentionally making time to read, but also in fumphering around to find what other people were thinking about reading books. I came across a very interesting article about children and reading and how sometimes children develop a disdain for reading because they're so drilled on phonics or the actual mechanics of reading. And the article said, which I thought is a lovely point and applies to adults too, that reading is about a disposition to read. It's about being able to sit in a big, comfortable armchair in the sunlight and read and enjoy a book. And honestly, for parents and aunts and uncles out there, encouraging kids to read, role modeling reading, will make them grow up to entrepreneurs who will pick up those business books and gain knowledge that will help them in life, and for the self-improvement books in business.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you said that, Barbara, because well, that brings back memories when my son was in 5th grade. The school district said every 5th grader had to read 100 books. Well, how else? Oh my God, you're turning kids off to wanting to read. I know it was a struggle in our house to meet that demand. And, then, you grow up and it's like, "Oh god, I had to read books as a kid. I don't wanna read books now." So, oh my god, what a disservice the school
What a
district was doing.
disservice.
Yes.
The reading opens up a world. And while we're mentioning children, again, as a writer and have done some children's writing, I believe that children's books are as important for adults as for kids. And one of my favorites is this book called Ira Sleeps Over. And it's a wonderful story about vulnerability and overcoming your fears and recognizing that we're all in this together, that we all have the same vulnerabilities and lack of confidence We're all in this together. And learning how to accept that and triumph is a great thing. So vulnerability is big in business today. I would add this to your list of business books, Christine.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm going to write that one down and look for that one in the library.
I would definitely do that. I went out and bought it, and it is a cherished part of my book collection. I even did a Facebook Live on it once.
Very nice.
So you'll report into me on Ira. And I guess it's quite evident that when it comes to Christine and Barbara, reading books is a priority because it helps us learn, it inspires us, and it brings us joy. And I think we've said all we have to say about that. We've shown our love, except to remind you to tune in and watch our next episode of Soapbox Wisdom and like it, comment, or share.
Soapbox Wisdom is hosted by brand messaging and storytelling consultant Barbara Menino and business and mindset coach Christine Rothdeutsch. You can find them online at barbaramenino.com and christinerothdeutsch.com.